Hello and welcome to Coffee Break. I'm Alita Stam, reporter at PR Week, and I'm joined today with Bill Novelli, Porter Novelli co-founder and founder of Business for Impact at Georgetown University's McDonough School of Business. Bill, thank you for joining me today. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Alita. How are you?
Doing quite well. You know, sometimes it's hard getting back after such a long break, but it feels good to be back at it again. How's the new year been treating you so far? Surviving almost a year of lockdown at this point.
I think things are good, Alita. I'm doing the same thing everybody else is. I'm working from home. I'm trying to work out, trying to keep family together. And I think we're going to get past this as the vaccines roll out.
I know, I certainly can't wait for things to get back to normal. So you're quite a pioneer in the communications industry. Let's start at the beginning. And you're co-founding at Porter Novelli. What was it about your approach to communications that set the agency apart from others in its time?
I think it was our focus on social relevance. You know, Jack Porter and I were in Washington. We had moved from New York and our careers there. And we wanted to start an agency, and we said to ourselves, well, what is Washington about? And we decided it was about social and health issues. And later, of course, we joked that that wasn't true at all. It was about power and money and politics and sex. But we said we were naive. So we focused on social and health issues, marketing communications, and it was a unique positioning for the time.
Yeah, definitely. Can you tell me a little bit about Jack Porter, the Porter to your Novelli?
Jack was and is a great guy. He's down in Florida walking his dog right now and staying out of the snow. But he's about 7 years older than I. He came from Ogilvy, had a good career in marketing communications. We loved the Peace Corps, but we wanted to go out on our own, and we made a great pair.
Awesome. And you helped quite a few big campaigns over the years, leading Porter Novelli accounts ranging from the National Cancer Institute to Corning, Unilever, and Kellogg's. And then you were the executive vice president of CARE. And then you founded the Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids. So you've been focusing on corporate purpose before it was all the rage, like it has been the last year or so. What drew you to that aspect of communications?
Well, over time, I developed this career goal. I wanted to make significant contributions to solving major social problems. I saw that as my career goal. And that's what I talk about in this book, Good Business, the idea that you can make a difference in virtually any sphere that you're in. And you mentioned a number of accounts. I think a good example is Kellogg. So Kellogg said, we're a cereal company, but we don't want to be that. We want to be a nutrition company. So we said, well, how can we help them do that in a way that they can continue to make money, but they can create social good? And so we developed partnerships with them with CDC and others. And it was the idea that you can do well by doing good.
Right, and as an agency too, was it novel at the time to be focusing on something like that?
It was a unique positioning. Over time, lots of people caught up. First, they learned the language, then they learned the principles. But I think we were a step ahead. We taught social marketing. We had a great team. Eventually we became part of Omnicom. So I think we were pioneering for a long time.
How would you say that agencies and public relations as a whole has changed since you started in the 70s?
Well, one way for sure is, of course, technology. And the media have changed as well. I mean, the media are so much more fragmented today. But another way, I think, Alita, is that there's much more focus on policy, on advocating for issues. You know, in our day, we started out focusing just on the consumer, but now we see that you've got to change social norms as well. But one thing that has not changed, in my view, is the energy and the creativity. So Porter Novelli had a holiday event and asked me to speak at it a week ago. And they went through and talked to people from the different offices, gave awards, found out what people were doing. And I'll tell you, I felt like I was in a time warp. The energy, the enthusiasm, the creativity, PR people today can really make a difference, can really help with, I think, social impact.
Definitely, and that's certainly been something that's been at the forefront for sure over the last year between the COVID-19 pandemic and then the cultural shift we have seen around racial injustice and corporate responsibility. So how has the tumultuous year of 2020 impacted the work that you do?
Well, at Georgetown, more companies have been coming to us because they want to do something. They don't want to just let the virus stop them in their tracks. And I've been talking to a lot of corporate leaders and nonprofit leaders, and a lot of these are people in the book. And what they're basically saying is we've got to take care of our people, we've got to take care of our communities. But beyond that, they're really trying to be reflective, and they're saying, what kind of an organization do we want to be? And even beyond that, what kind of a country do we want to be?
Yeah, definitely. It's certainly been something that's been focused on, through the election and everything else that's been going on. How do you encourage, do you find that you have to encourage people to be open and honest about these kinds of things, or do you find that they're very proactive about talking about these issues?
Well, I think more and more companies are figuring it out, and we are definitely on the right trend. We're trending towards social responsibility, doing well by doing good, people, planet, profit, those kinds of things. That when companies can do that, it's their sweet spot. It's not always easy, but it's their sweet spot. So one example is we're working with AB InBev right now, the big beverage company. And they see their responsibility to focus on responsible drinking. Now, that's a tough assignment, but they're working on it. They're making progress, and we're doing a study on it. But that gives you an example of how companies are trying to be farsighted and really do well by doing good.
Right. Can you give a little bit of advice maybe to communications professionals that want to introduce purpose into, be it their accounts, if they're at an agency, or if their company, if they're internal, to sort of encourage wherever they are to take on a purpose?
Well, that's what the book is about. What I like to say is that wherever you are, in whatever organization you're with, a company, a nonprofit, the government, whatever, you can make a dent in the universe. You can do well by doing good. And I think if you look at a company, for example, like CVS Health, Eileen Boone is the head of CSR there, and she says people join our company for that very reason. They can be pharmacists, they can be truck drivers, they can be in the supply chain. Everybody can make a difference.
Right. I've found through talking to professionals in the field, and I'd really like to get your point of view as someone who's sort of been a pioneer here, how you interject authenticity when it comes to purpose, because consumers know when you're just performing purpose for the sake of knowing that your consumers want you to be involved in that. So how do you encourage communications professionals to be authentic in their purpose?
Well, you put your finger on it. You cannot fake it. You cannot fake it. You can't make it up. Porter Novelli has this Porter Novelli Cone Purpose Index, and what they show is that companies with strong reputations tend to be strong in perceived purpose. And there's a lot of greenwashing out there. People who make it up, who try to get by with stories. It cannot be done. You've got to do your homework. You've got to find the positioning. And the thing that's the beauty of this is you can make money by doing good.
Definitely. And then the other aspect too is when it comes to these issues that are very hot button, do you find that companies are more likely to jump on them, whereas a few years ago they would have been like, oh, I don't necessarily want to talk about racial injustice, or we don't want to talk about climate change or politics or things like that, because they're worried that they'll get shown as being one-sided?
Yeah, I think you're right. These are opportunities as well as problems. So if we look at, for example, climate change or climate action, the big oil and gas companies are essentially saying, we want to be energy companies. We see that the world is changing and that we can change with it. So let's take advantage of these opportunities or else the world is going to change us.
Right, definitely. And we've mentioned it a few times here. I actually have your book here with me, Good Business, The Talk, Fight, Win Way to Change the World. So how was it to add author to your list of achievements?
Well, you're kind to ask. I've written a few other books, but this is my legacy book. What I like to think about in this book is that, as I said, everybody can make a difference. Secondly, as we discussed, companies are moving along on this trend line towards corporate purpose, and that's making a difference as well. But the third thing is, and I relate this to my students and everybody else, we have an obligation. We've been given a great country, and right now we've got a lot of divisiveness and polarization. We've got to get past all that. And what we have to do essentially is make sure that we hand our children and our grandchildren a country, a country as good as it has been. And so, I try to talk about that in the book. I talk a lot about my students. Students today say that they want purpose as well as a paycheck. And I think that sums it up.
Yeah, definitely. You're certainly on the front lines of helping mold a generation with your work at Georgetown. What's it like teaching that to a new generation? Are there aspects that sort of surprise you about them?
There are a few things that surprise me, but first of all, I find it inspiring. At the end of the day, I have a song in my heart because I have tomorrow's leaders in my classroom. And if you look at the Gen Z and millennials, people like to say, well, they're lazy. They're much more focused on life than work. I don't find that to be true. They get the work done and they do good work. They just don't do it the way we did in my day. They like to think of work as a thing, not a place. And they say, I will do the work. And I think that they are, I think not just the future, but I think they're inspiring.
Yeah, that idea of work as a thing, not a place, is certainly been very relevant this year as I speak to you from my bedroom.
Indeed, indeed.
It's been an adjustment for a lot of people. Do you think that that's something that we'll see more of in the future, where people will work just as hard, but it doesn't necessarily matter that they're anchored to a specific office space?
I do. I think everybody's talking about that. We're all working harder, if anything. Because we don't have that commute in front of us. There's more time at home. I mean, people are working very hard. We have a great team at Georgetown. And I can tell you, we're Zooming all day long. By the end of the day, I'm tired.
I totally get that. Sometimes it's a little bit harder than having to deal with, taking the train into Penn Station. Just the commute to my couch sometimes when you're doing a full day's work can be quite exhausting.
Yeah. But it's a chance to talk to an awful lot of people. The corporate world out there, I think is a great place. And I think the PR industry today, PR professionals today, are in a spot where they can really make a difference.
Yeah, definitely. Any last thoughts on your book before we go? We have a few minutes left here. What do you hope readers take away from it? They can't necessarily be at your Georgetown University classes, but they can read your book.
Yeah. Well, I think they can, or hopefully they will take away from it the idea that we were talking about, that everybody can make a difference. Number two, that whatever your organization is, you can help them to do well by doing good. It could be a big company, a small company, it can be a PR agency, whatever it is. And then, as I said before, that third thing is we've got to make our country a better place. The American dream is a bit tarnished right now. We have a lot of work in front of us. And I like to talk about that in the book and say, we can do it. We can make a difference.
Well, new year, new goals. I certainly hope that we're taking steps in the right direction. That's about all we have for Coffee Break today. Thank you again for joining me, Bill, and best of luck with your book release and continuing your purpose mission.
Thanks very much, Alita. Thank you so much.